Good afternoon, Lone Wanderer here again. Just thought I might show you a bushcraft knife or survival knife. Just a quick view. It's not going to be a full review. Um, just going to be first impressions. What I think to it. It's the first time I've ever used a bushcraft knife like this kind of shape, but here it is. Some people might know, some people might not know. Been after one of these for quite some time now. Let me just put me remote. Which is this one. You can see straight away when I say the shape. Okay, so this is called a Caine. For those people that don't know who Caine is, he is a survival instructor. He has been for many years, and he's worked with and taught many instructors worldwide, not just in the UK, survival and bushcraft. He once worked with Lofty Wiseman, who used to be in the SAS, over 20 years in the SAS, and he took Caine under his wing for a while, and then obviously they went separate ways. And Caine started bringing out his own versions of knives, and this is one of them. It's Caine Survival Knife. It's not the Caine Survival Tool, because the Survival Tool is a lot longer. I have had and used the Survival Tool, and it's by no means similar to this. This is completely different. So this is his survival knife. This is one of his Mark 1 models. He did several models. This is the earliest one, made by Samuel Staniforth. I always get this wrong. Staniforth of Sheffield. Okay. Now, I've been wanting one of these for years, but I wasn't after the Mark 1. I was after the Mark 2. The Mark 2 is similar to this, but it's basically had a 90-degree spine. So this is the earlier Mark 1 version. This is one that I got in a trade deal. So because obviously you cannot have buy these knives anymore. Very, very hard to get hold of. But this is the only one I could get hold of, unfortunately. I really wanted the Mark II, but this is the one that I could get hold of at the minute, the Mark 1 version, with the rounded spine, not the 90-degree spine, unfortunately. But it is what it is. You can easily, if I keep this knife, I can easily put a 90-degree spine on there, or rough it up with a file or something. Although it will decrease its value considerably, but these knives, in my opinion, are made to be used, not to be hung on the wall. Don't like wall hangers, like knives to be used, and this is definitely a user. Quick specs on this knife. I think it's around 5-inch blade long, 5 inches in the blade. It's got lovely McCarter handle scales. He did make these in other handles as well, other different coloured McCarter scales, and I believe he made them in rosewood as well, as a lot of the Sheffield made knives do make their handles out of rosewood. 2 brass pins, heavy duty pins. It is 5mm thick stock, so for a bushcraft knife this size, that's quite considerable thickness. So this, like I say, this is a knife to be used. So 5mm thick, and it really shows as well when you hold it in your hands. It feels really robust, very heavy duty. The steel, like a lot of Caine's knife steel, is 75 carbon steel. I believe it's 1075 carbon steel. It's very easy to sharpen, because obviously 1075 carbon steel tends to be very easy to sharpen, maintaining the field, but it is carbon, so make sure you do oil it as well. And you can see by the blade shape, okay, it's a very unusual shape. It's a cross between, let's say, a miniature kukri used in Nepal, and a Groman, you know, almost like a Groman survival knife, Canadian survival knife. So it's crossed between a kukri and one of those. Probably more so the kukri, with this large belly here, large sweep belly here. So because of that weight there, it does weigh slightly top heavy there, blade heavy, but only ever so slightly. The balance is quite good. Now, when I read on these knives, he did them in different grinds as well. Did them in full flat grind, saber grind, and a convex grind. Now, first, when I got this through the post, it looked like I had a saber grind, which was ideal because I do like my saber grinds, especially for a bushcraft knife. And if for my larger knives, I like them to be convex because they are the best for chopping. But on the close inspection, this is actually the convex model. So when you hold it to the side there, it's very hard to pick up on camera, but it does look like a saber grind at first, but it's not, because you can see it's very chunky here, and there is ever so slight curve from there all the way down to the apex. So that's actually a convex grind, and it has got a secondary micro bevel along the edge as well. For those that know me, I really don't like micro bevels on any of my knives, so at some stage I will be taking that off, and probably turn it into a full convex, or maybe a saber grind, I don't know, but that is a semi-convex, definitely, not a saber grind. So just wanted to clear that up. So first impressions, yeah, it's quite a weighty knife for a bushcraft or mini survival blade, which is what it is classed as. Me personally, I wouldn't class it as a survival knife because it's too small to be classed as a heavy-duty survival knife. So for me, this is a classic bushcraft style, but obviously, unlike most bushcraft knives, like being the woodlaw style, the blade shape is very unusual. So, like I said, it's almost like a mini kukri. Whether or not he designed it based off the kukri, I'm not too sure. But we'll give it a go. We'll see if it just performs. Like I say, this is just the first impressions. What I think to it. I don't really usually give reviews on knives until I've used them for at least a few months, possibly longer, so I can do a proper review on it. But first impressions, we'll see how she does. The blade was semi-sharp when I got it. Like I say, this is a second-hand knife. I did buy it in a trade deal, so the only thing I've done with this is that I've touched the blade up slightly, so at least it's got a workable edge on it, so I can perform bushcraft tasks in the field today. Mainly just slicing ability, but let's have a look anyway. But I angle it of a suitable stick. So I'm going to get some of this ash. It's been down there for a while, so it is kind of quite dry. Not ideal really, but we'll see. Try and adjust that so you can see me. Bit of rough wood, but we'll see. First impressions. So the wood is very dry. See how she slices first. Like I say, all I've done, I don't know if it's hair shaving sharp, I didn't really test it, but all I've done is just touch the blade up so it's got at least a workable edge on it. I don't think it was being sharpened before I got it. But yeah, she seems to be doing a pretty good job. This is why I like to do long-term reviews. This is just, like I say, a first impression reviews, because it takes at least a few months to get used to a knife that you're obviously not accustomed to, not used to, and this is no exception because of this blade shape. Very unusual blade shape for a knife this small, I think. So to get to grips with it, to really test it out, I always recommend using a knife for at least a few months, if not more, before you give your final account on it. But so far so good. You can really use, when you slice, you can really use, because just like the kukri, which is a similar blade shape, okay, so the first couple of inches of this knife, the same as a lot of kukris, is for use for fine carving tasks, you know, for your heavy duty cuts and feather sticks and things like that. So at least from the plunge line there to there, that's your cutting bit of the blade. But when you're slicing, because of that that belly there goes all the way around, it really comes into its own of stripping bark. So, you know, using a knife like this to get into grips with it and try and get used to it, compared to a straight blade, it does feel a bit unusual, but because of that sweep there, it does actually aid slightly in the slicing ability, as you will see. So as I start there, like you would do a normal bushcraft knife, and then as you go down, you can see if I move the knife, how this sweep there, that belly that sticks out, can really aid and assist in slicing, which I quite like. I quite like it. Feels unusual at first because I'm used to mostly straight blades, as I'm sure most of us are, but it's quite good. It's quite good. That really does assist when you're slicing, doing the forward grip. And bear in mind, this is it's not green wood. It's been dried out for at least a few months now, so it is quite a kind of tough. But yeah, so we've got a few knots here on the edge, right here. What I'm going to do, I'm going to make this into some sort of tent peg, which is going to be difficult because like I said, the wood is really dry. It's kind of hard as well. It's not green wood, and the reason why I'm choosing this stick, you can see here how hard that is, and the reason why I'm choosing this stick is because I want to test what this knife does at getting these knots out, in order for me to turn this into some sort of usable point, to make a peg. which is usually one of my first tests, as you probably know by now. I make a lot of tent pegs because when I'm reviewing knives and testing knives, making a simple tent peg is it really does test your knife out. Putting notches in and then scraping the bark off, making a point, you know. So I tend to do a lot of tent pegs when I'm reviewing knives and things, but we'll carry on doing this and try and make a point out of this knotty bit here. Might use different grips as well, depends how I go with this forward grip, but it seems to be doing it fine. Yeah, it's not bad. I mean, it's not as good as a Scandi, but it's doing its job. It is working. So because it's dry and kind of hard, we'll see how it does in the chest lever stroke. Okay, see how it does with doing the chest lever. So let's really get these knots out. Yeah, getting used to a knife that's this shape is going to take a lot of work and a lot of trial and error, but again, as the people who know me and follow me or know me for years, they know I don't stick to one knife. I like to try out different knives, different grinds, different shapes and sizes. So in that way, my knowledge is gaining more and more at using different knives, and will experience different experience using different knives, different steels, different shapes and sizes. So I could just pick up any knife and know exactly how to use it just by picking it up. Doesn't matter if it's a Scandi, a Sabre, convex, you know, I know that from experience that I can use it. So that's why I like to use different knives, different steels, different grinds and shapes. So we'll see. Yeah. Now, normally I'd have my knives a lot sharper than this, but all I did is just touch this up, because it wasn't blunt, but it wasn't as sharp as I like to have my knives. But yeah, it's not doing bad. It's not doing bad. So I've got the knots out, and we'll see if we can thin that out just a little bit more. Bear in mind, this is dry, a bit hard wood. You can probably hear how hard this wood is when I'm carving. It really does. Like I say, you're gaining experience, you're gaining knowledge on how different woods work, as well as your tools as well. So like I said in one of my previous videos, try and use different woods, not just the same wood all the time. Use different woods, different hardwood, softwood, green wood, things of that nature. So all we're doing, first time using it, getting a feel for it, where the correct angle is. Okay, pretty good cut there. Make some sort of point on it. Yeah, the wood is not a perfect choice for this kind of work, but I did that on purpose to test its slicing ability, definitely. Okay, so now I'm going to cut that point down a little bit more. So using a really strong grip it relatively hard, not too hard, but quite hard. I'll try. Hard to do this when you're sitting down. Probably hear how hard that is. Just put the camera down there so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm still kneeling down and trying to use less energy by using a powerful stroke when I'm not going out here and doing that kind of thing. Okay. Okay, so got some sort of point there. Yeah, so some sort of point there. Okay, slicing ability so far it's not bad. It could do with touching up. I do like my knives to be hair shaving sharp for carving with. But yeah, all in all, it's done its job. Not too shabby, not too bad at all. Okay. Temp peg, nobody wants a temp peg with notches sticking out. It's going to be a lot harder to bang into the ground, so 2 notches to remove. One there, one there. I think I'm going to move that with chest lever again. Using the chest lever on this handle, it is actually quite comfortable. Quite surprised, because when you hold it, it's heavy, it feels bulky, just the handle's like rock hard micarta, but it's surprisingly comfy, which is because when I first got it out of the box that the guy sent it me in, it felt a bit hard, if you know what I mean, but it's not too bad at all. Get this down a bit. Okay, so both notches removed, not too shabby. Got 2 more notches to remove there. Again, ideal world, I'd pick sticks that's not got notches in it, but again, I'm doing this purely to test this. Okay, so trying to think I've got anything to lean this on, which I haven't. Probably have to do this. So break the notch down. If you've got large knots which your knife can't remove it in stages. Okay, or if you've got something like a log or something like that, you can do downward chopping motions to remove it quicker. But if you haven't got that, you could use the chest lever maneuver to get rid of these knots in stages. So first stage, just get the top off and then just work your way down. So slashing ability, it's not bad. I think with it being a lot sharper to my standards, I think it'd perform a lot better than the little touch-up job that I did before I left the house. But again, get the notch off, but it's done it. So quite impressed, really. So that's removed. I'm just going to remove the bark on top of there. And you know, it's like with any new knife, you need to learn to get to grips with it. You really need to learn, because not every knife is going to be the same. Not every knife is going to be your typical woodlaw blade, and this is one of those knives that's not a woodlaw style. Maybe the woodlaw style handle, slight palm swelling, but the blade certainly isn't. Okay, so tip: this bit where you're going to be hammering, it's just going to chamfer this off a bit so it doesn't split, as you would do. Use probably the belly for this. Again, it'd be a lot sharper. Prefer it to be a lot sharper, but that's all I had time to do. But still doing it. Still doing it. Just cut in a bit. Normally, if it's raining or something like that, you don't spend too long on one tent peg, especially if you forgot your tent pegs and you need maybe like 4 of these making. I wouldn't go to too much effort as I'm doing now to make it perfect. But I'm just doing it today to test the knife out. Okay, so notches off, debarked it from there, made a point so I can hammer it into the ground. Again, this is the Mark 1 model, it's not the one with the 90-degree spine. There, well, both sides actually, is rounded off, so I've got no chance of scraping bark, and that's why I like 90-degree. I don't like 90-degree spines on knives to strike a ferro rod. I like 90-degree spines on my knife to remove bark and shavings and that kind of thing. That's why I like them. That's the way I use them. It's sharp there, but it's not sharp enough, if you know what I mean. It's just in that area there, so it is in a way, but it's not as sharp as I'd like. So again, that needs to be addressed if you're going to use this as a full-time bushcraft knife. So yeah, next we come to the notching. Now, because this is a convex grind, which is not really a problem if you're notching, but it's not a full convex. It's because it's got a secondary bevel, or micro bevel if you like. I don't know if that was put on by the previous owner or it was done intentionally from the factory, but you can clearly see it's got a secondary micro bevel along the edge. So, and this is why I don't like micro bevels or a secondary edge on the apex. It's because for things like notching, it's a nightmare, because you want to use as much as the whole belly, the whole cutting edge as you physically can. But for me, a micro bevel really gets in the way of doing that, and I'll show you. My experience with micro bevels and secondary bevels, you know, tells me that this is not going to be the best notcher. So this is the first time that I'm going to be notching with this knife. So we'll see. So I'll put choose the area. So I'll put my stop cut, which I always do. Okay, so fit there relatively well. And then, now this is not the part I'm worried about, it's the part after this, as I'll show you. Okay, so that's going through that pretty nice. Doing the push cut with my thumb, biting quite deep. Now this is the part where the micro bevel struggles sometimes, but let's give it a go. Is to remove that material. So I'm going to place the edge of my blade right on top of where you put the stop cut. Straight away it's struggling. Okay, straight away it's struggling to get that piece out. Now if this was a full Scandi without sticking in bevel, then it'd do it no problem. So I'm going to turn it around and do it from this way. So, hey, so finally got it out. But it wasn't easy, and that's what I said why I don't like micro bevels on knives, because it really does interfere with your carving. You don't want micro bevels when you're carving. They put micro bevels on there, or to protect the apex from work, from heavy duty work. See, if a lot of scanners have secondary bevels, micro bevels on knives, it just reinforces that edge if you want to use it for heavy duty batoning, chopping, things of that nature. But it does get in the way of carving, not gonna lie, it does. This is no exception, really. So yeah, so everything else is fine, it's just the notching because of that micro bevel there, which needs to come off to make it better for carving. But got your notch, got your point, you know, job's good in, use that. It's a 10 peg, and that's it really. Yeah, so I always check my blade afterwards, see if there's any rolls, chips and that kind of thing, so there's nothing standing out at me at all. I don't really expect it to be anything, to be honest. So I'm going to cut the video feed there. I'm going to go into just part 2, just give you first impressions on this Caine shaped knife, and maybe do some feather sticks as well. So I'll see you in part 2.